Freud once said that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious mind. They enable us to see what is happening within the unconscious processes of the dreamer. Jung also thought that dreams provide a snapshot of what is happening in the unconscious mind. But for Jung, dreams are more potent vehicles of the unconscious and have a function to alert the conscious mind as to what's going on. They often have a compensatory function, indicating where we might need to adjust our attitude or behaviours in order to find or restore balance in the psyche. So, like Freud, Jung believed that dream analysis allowed for a window into the unconscious mind. But unlike Freud, Jung did not believe that the contents of all dreams were necessarily sexual in nature or that they disguised their true meaning. Instead, Jung's depiction of dreams concentrated more on symbolic imagery. He believed dreams could have many different meanings according to the dreamer's associations. Secondly, Jung was against the idea of a dream dictionary, where dreams are interpreted by fixed meanings. He claimed dreams speak in a distinctive language of symbols, images, and metaphors, and that they portray both the external and internal world. So, for instance, individuals and places in a person's dream, person's day-to-day life, as well as the person's internal world, which include their feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Jung agreed that dreams could be retrospective in nature and reflect events in childhood, but he also felt that they could serve a clairvoyant function, in a sense, by actually anticipating future events. Jung criticized Freud for focusing purely on the external and objective aspects of a person's dream. His position was rather to look at both the objective and subjective content. And crucially, one of the more distinctive aspects of Jung's dream theory was that dreams could express personal as well as collective or universal contents. This universal or collective content was displayed through what Jung termed archetypes. Jung argued that our distant ancestors' experience of universal concepts like God and the earth were transmitted through generations. People in every time period have been influenced by their ancestors' experience. This means that the contents of the collective unconscious are the same for each individual within a culture. These archetypes are symbolically expressed through dreams, fantasies, and hallucinations. So what exactly are these archetypes? Well, let's start with the etymology of the word archa. Comes from the Greek meaning original, and type means to copy or stamp. Archetypes are universally inherited prototypes, or blueprints, if you like, which help us to perceive and act in a certain way. An archetype is an unknowable essence that profoundly influences our experience. However, it's crucial to state that it is not the particular image or form that this essence takes in our minds that we become aware of, which is the archetype itself. The form or the image it takes, for example, a particular person, an object, or a setting, is merely the clothing it adopts within the individual's psyche in order to present itself to the conscious mind. The archetype itself is the latency, the potentiality behind that which manifests. It is as if it were programmed into our psychic makeup, much in the same way as a seed is programmed to germinate. As Jung states, quote, "The archetype is essentially an unconscious content that is altered by becoming conscious and by being perceived, and it takes its color from the individual consciousness in which it happens to appear." Now, the term archetype is now a well-used term to describe familiar behaviors and phenomena. For example, popular films such as Star Wars, where polarities of light and dark, hero and villain, are portrayed to dramatic effect, capturing our attention because of their archetypal resonance. So that's all some pretty heavy going stuff for us to digest. So I want to segue into our recommended reads section before we come to the final area of disagreement between Jung and Freud. So the first book I'd like to draw your attention to is called The Unconscious by Sigmund Freud. Now, this is a slim volume containing key statements that aim to provide evidence for the unconscious, how it works, and as well as it features major essays on all the fundamentals of mental functioning. In this book, Freud explores how we are torn between the pleasure principle and the reality principle, and how we often find ways both to express and deny what we most fear, and why certain people need fetishes for sexual satisfaction. The next book I would like to recommend is A Complete Introduction to Psychology, and it's part of the Teach Yourself series. Now, with this book, you get a broad overview of the modern field of psychology, complete with detailed explanations of the manifold sub-areas that pertain to different strands of psychology. It's written by Dr. Sandy Mann, a senior lecturer at the University of Central Lancashire in England, and it outlines the basics in clear, jargon-free English, and then provides features like summaries of key experiments and even lists of questions you might be asked in an examination. The last book is called Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung. And here, Carl Jung examines the world of the unconscious, whose language he believed to be the symbols constantly revealed in dreams. He was convinced that dreams offer practical advice sent from the unconscious to the conscious self. And Jung felt that self-understanding would lead to a full and productive life. Essentially, his concept that he termed the individuation process, which we'll touch on briefly soon. Now, this is a fairly accessible read, and it's aimed at the general reader. So definitely a good place to get to grips with the basics of Jung.